Okay, so we're here today to talk about cold brew and how to infuse cold brew with nitrogen, and also how to set up a kegerator. So we have over here a kegerator, and we have all the parts out here. So I'm going to quickly introduce you all the different parts and how it all goes together. And then I'm going to put together the system. And what I thought I would do to make it interesting is put together all the parts outside the refrigerator so you can see how all the parts fit together. And the only thing you don't actually need is the refrigerator. The refrigerator is actually extra just to keep it cold. So I'm going to actually put it together here on the table so you can see how it all works. And then, so let's start with introducing the system. So you basically start with a gas tank, which in this case we're using a nitrogen tank, a small one here. And then we have all kinds of different regulators. This is a cheaper regulator. This is a really expensive regulator. And you can see we have one regulator but two pipes. So as you order your regulator, you need to make sure it's the right regulator. Then we have some extremely cheap Chinese regulators. I do not recommend using these Chinese regulators. They're kind of locally made, very low quality. You're going to get very low performance. So let's put these two regulators away. And this regulator is really cool because it has a flexible hose. And you can put the regulator separate from the tank. Today we're not going to use this one either. This one is nice because you can connect two pipes to one tank. We're not going to use that either. Today we're going to use this, which is just a single direct connect regulator and a single air tank. We have our air line here, and we want to connect a gray fitting or sometimes a white fitting. These are gas fittings. So we want to first put on a clamp. Then we want to put our hose onto our fitting. Then we can tighten the clamp so it doesn't leak. The biggest problem I see with these keg systems is people don't connect their clamps tight enough and the systems end up leaking. These types of clamps I'm using now, I'm using it because I'm going to take it off later. But actually you want to use these kind of permanent clamps, not these kind of adjustable clamps. They're much better. And you want to really get them on there good and tight. If you don't get them on there good and tight, your system's going to leak, you're going to waste a lot of air, and you're going to be very frustrated. So we tighten up this. So now we have to put our brew into some kind of keg. This keg here is a Pepsi keg. It's what's most widely used. And the way it works is it has an out and an in. And out comes your brew, and your blue, the way you remember it is black is for brew and gray is for gas. So your gas or gray goes to the inside, so gray should connect to in, and black should connect to out for your brew that comes out. Now this is a little different. You see we have a third connector here on the lid. I'm going to explain that third connector a little bit later. This is your standard Pepsi type connector. Then we have a Coca-Cola keg. This Coca-Cola keg here has a little different connectors. It has prongs sticking out, and these connect to the prongs. And they're red and yellow. I don't not like using this kind of connector. Typically I don't use Coca-Cola connectors, I use Pepsi connectors. There's one other kind, and this I don't know what else to call other than we're currently calling it China style keg. It's not Pepsi, it's not Coca-Cola, and it's basically the same keg, except for the main difference you'll notice is the lid is bigger. And so the Pepsi and Coke lids are otherwise interchangeable, but the China kegs are not interchangeable. So now we have our air tank, we have it connected. So now we have our tap, and we want to connect our tap to the black for brew. Sometimes these connectors don't want to go on, and rather than force them, what you can do is just get a little bit of water to act as a lubricant and slightly lubricate this with some clean water, and they will slide right on. So now we have our air connected to, or gas connected to gray. Gray is gas, and we're going to put that to the inside of our keg. That connects there, and then let's lay that down. The black is for brew. We haven't clamped this on yet, but that's fine. We can go ahead and put that on here. So we have our air tank now connected, or gas connected to gray going in, and we have our black connected to the out, which is for blue. Black is brew connected to the out, and then that's connected to our tap. So now as we turn on air, we can control the air pressure. We can turn on the gas here. You can see this is the pressure of the air tank. This pressure here is the pressure that I'm putting into the keg. So I want to adjust this slowly. And you can see the needle going up. Now I'm putting air pressure in. And what we found is that for nitrogen, you want about 40 pounds of pressure. And so this here, we have our entire keg system. Air, which pushes the liquid out of the keg into the tap, and then the brew line connecting to the tap. And we don't have it in a kegerator right now, but you can see we can get coffee out. But you can see there's not very good nitrous in the brew. Right now, the reason there's not good nitrous is that nitrous is very, very difficult to dissolve into a liquid. So the ability of a gas to dissolve into a liquid is based on the amount of time, the amount of pressure, the size of the bubbles, the type of gas, and the temperature. So we want the temperature as low as we can. We want the air bubbles as small as we can. And we want enough pressure, which 40 pounds of pressure works about perfectly for nitrogen. So how do we get small bubbles? Well, I want to demonstrate that for you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my gas off, and I'm going to connect my gas. I'm going to set my tap down. So the question is, how do you get smaller bubbles? Well, I want to show you. Here's just a glass of water. Here's our air line. And if you just connect the air to this, it's going to come out in very big bubbles. So we can connect our air line to here, and we can turn on the gas. You can see the bubbles that come out are very big bubbles. Those don't dissolve very well. So what we want to do is we want to pass that air through a restrictor. And here we have a third connector here on the top. And this is typically not needed except for when you're trying to carbonate a liquid. So because we're trying to carbonate, we've connected a new connector to the top, a new line, and we pass it through a titanium restrictor that makes the bubbles very small. So now look at these bubbles and compare. So now we're making billions of tiny bubbles, and those tiny bubbles are much easier to dissolve into water. Or in the case of coffee, if we want to make cold brew, the idea is that we can make cold brew much better carbonation by these micro bubbles. So this method has been used in the beer brewing industry for a while, but it's not widely known in coffee. If you don't use this, you can still carbonate your coffee, or you can still put nitrogen into your coffee without this. But if you don't use this, it's going to take much more time. It's going to be much more difficult to carbonate your coffee well. So now we're going to try this again. We're going to take our handy dandy carbonating lid, and we're going to connect now the gas line. Last time we connected the gas line here. This time we're going to connect it to the lid so that we're actually carbonating, and we're going to crank up our pressure to 40 psi, and our coffee's nice and cold. So now see that we have much nicer carbonated coffee now. And of course it's not actually carbonated, it's actually nitrogen. But you can see that we've actually put nitrogen in there, and you can see all the little micro bubbles coming out. And that's the goal, and that's why this is the key to really good nitrous coffee, is having this titanium stone that you're putting your coffee through. The problem is, even if you have that stone, you got to buy these special lids that have the connector on them. So now that we've looked at this, what we want to do is we're going to put all of this equipment into a keg.